Politics is fun until the vice president shoots you in the face.
Yes. I'd like to try to do the impossible dream.
Okay.
Which has been so meaningful to me for a long time. To dream the impossible dream. To fight the unbeatable foe. To bear the unbearable sorrow. To run where the brave dare not go. To right the unrightable wrong. To love pure and chaste from afar. To try when your arms are too weary. To reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow this cause, no matter how hopeless, no matter what loss. To fight for the right, to be
without question or pause.
Without question or pause. To rush into hell for the heavenly cause. And I know if I follow this dream, well, that's terrible. Yeah.
And I know if I'll only be true
to this heavenly
glorious quest, that my heart
will lie peaceful and calm as I'm laid to my rest. That one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. That's from the Man of La Mancha, obviously. And in 1975, my wife Peggy and I made a marriage encounter. And it actually changed our lives, changed my life, definitely. Several years later, we became secular Franciscans. And it was through that effort that we began the situation that Manny talked about. We started a ministry to the street people in Indianapolis. In 3.5 years, we served over 30,000 people, over 300,000 items of everything, coffee and rolls, and underwear and t-shirts and socks and hankies. And we had almost 300 people that helped us at least one time or another, making sandwiches and doing things. And obviously we were almost to the point of collapse when we had to give it up, and we turned it over to the St. Vincent de Paul Society. And instead of doing it 3 times a week like we were doing it, they're doing it once a week, some 30 years later, still doing it in a park in Indianapolis. So I feel blessed that we had that opportunity. And it all came about because of the marriage encounter. So thank you.
Will there be another?
When you're awake for round 2, he could call you out.
This is for Manny. A haiku. I just thought of called Ghetto Bird. And I just forgot it. In the moment of blooming, the hummingbird glitters, hot-locking life.
Who was helping me with that poem? You?
Yes, sir.
Did you do a marriage encounter? Or do you remember Man of La Mancha or anything of that?
No. I just...
remember that song?
I remember the song, and I remember...
being touched by it?
Yeah. Greatly touched by that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I want to thank you and thank you for your service. And no, I'm not Barack Obama. But I just want to say something about this upcoming thing that's happening. They call it an election. I have no great love for Barack Obama. I certainly have no love at all for Mitt Romney. And if I had my druthers, I would say just skip the whole thing. Skip the election. But Mitt Romney is a dangerous guy.
Absolutely.
Mitt Romney's got a thing for poor people. And
Extinction?
yeah, that's the thing he's got.
Compassion deficit disorder is a
Yeah,
political right.
he has, yes. Romney has a compassionate disorder.
Yes.
The last election was the first election that I ever voted in because I couldn't find any reason to. I voted in the last election because the guy who was running was a black guy, and he made sense what he was saying. But then he got into office and he pulled in all the white guys who were from the last and past administrations. And it just became very clear that politics, and I already knew this, but I was hoping against hope, that politics is just a game to fool us, and that votes are just a game to keep us pacified. And I don't like being pacified. It pisses me off. But if I have a choice to be pissed off under one or the other administration, I think I'd rather be pissed off under the Obama administration than the Romney administration. Because I think under the Romney administration that my crazy might just have to come back out. Because there's no respite there for poor folks. So I would just encourage all of you who believe that people are important and that the stories that we heard here this evening are meaningful, to go out and cast a vote. And don't wait till election day. Just go out and do it. Get it done. And cast a vote. You know, both of them are talking about, well, it doesn't matter who you vote for, just vote. Yeah, it matters who you vote for. It matters. We need to, as bad as it is, we need to keep Obama in office. Because Romney will be an absolute disaster. The economy will collapse. Big business will go absolutely mad. And we will find ourselves in the streets poised against one another, because that's how they play the game. So that's just my spiel on politics. This poem is a work in progress, and I pulled it up and I don't even know what it says. So I'm just going to read it. I remember writing it, but I can't remember when. So it's going to be a revelation to me. Just as it is to you.
I'm gonna laugh when it's an anti-Obama.
It probably is. Poetry is life's conversation with death. A spiraling string of gnarled memories, moments pressed against the throbbing temple of time, a retrogression toward resuscitation or an advance into annihilation. Poetry is the unspeakable unknown speaking truth. The rising belly of guffaw, tap dancing on the gone of now, returning there, yet here, still. Poetry is life experienced, an inverse sawtooth wave, the harsh, harmonic literature of my tongue walking words foreign to my palate, an impish boy chewing sweet black tar dug from the high street where he grew up, late 40s, after the war, before the police action, and on into the mid-50s, that sweet black chewy tar, brushed there by the town fathers in hot August to dampen down July's dust storms, praying our ordinary time. Poetry is a rough housing with Michael, always a hope masquerading, the boy and Michael setting a fire to the vacant lot, dry weeds grown over in the middle of the block where they lived on High Street between Payne and the deep woods that led to Valhalla. Two boys, black and white, in the high grass with matches, laughing at their own mischief. They ran home when they could not stomp out the flames. It was past midday. He ran to hide in the bathtub, filled with warm water and ivory soap, bobbing in the dirty water, 99 and 100% pure behind the closed door. As the fire-heavy sirens wailed and grown folks' murmurs from the street were choked out by the white smoke curling skyward from the flame and fumes. Poetry is that unspeakable unknowing, life on the hill, high above the valley floor, peering daily into the chrysalis of its unknown and wondering at the wonders of life outside his bubble. Poetry is the Murrows and Melillos, bright-skinned Johnny Denegal and Edna, his pretty dark brown-skinned wife, and the Fosters with their yard of dogs and their often stated seniority on the block, and the Taylors, spread of acres, where he lived, a foster kid, there in their high street home, and the Caprianos, who only came in summer from hotter places in Arizona with their dark-haired daughter Nina, who was the unspeakable, unspoken, and the Stoddards, whose home guarded the southwest corner of High and Payne, and brothers Johnny and David living there where he played army and soldier, and climbed trees and fantasies in their backyard and basement playroom, crawling on his belly through a war-zone imagination of fire in the high grass chaparral between their neat fenced lawn and Audie Murphy in his mind, and the Fosters, sulking pines of foreshadowing. Poetry is that unspeakable unknowing of these early families, black, immigrant, Italian, and Old English, where he came to see himself as incomplete and something only short of dangerous. With God, a word he could not touch, before High became a street when it was just a dirt path at the top of Payne Hill, there at the ford where the elms grew strong and full and the dogwoods bloomed their bloody crosses and white spring flowers scented the unpolluted air 20 miles north of New York City. Poetry is the unspeakable unknowing, a squealing hog, back legs strung up, head swinging low, the dull crack of bone and chop of axe blade, the unalterable silent squeal, the ripping sizzle of a cut throat, hog bleeding out. John Taylor and Mr. Murrow, killing and dismembering, dividing the body parts, their fired outdoor oven waiting, the oven made with their own hands from harvested brick and flat stone, and a deep, cleaned, empty oil barrel, and black sweat and Italian labor, and a gentleman's agreement to be men. There, at the ford, where the elms and oaks lined yards and the community of neighbors celebrated the harvest in the late fall, thankful for another season of fruit and corn from the land in John's and Carrie's garden. And the black boy back to old oak, comfortable on kitchen steps, huddled in his mother's apron, smelling greens and himself and pork chops frying in a cast iron black skillet and the warm glow of feeling safe and almost visible. Poetry is that unspeakable unknowing of midnight in mama's house, lights out and no street lights, and the big oak blocking moon glow, and the growling furnace in the basement, and the floorboard squealing underfoot in his room with the brocade red bird lamp, light of his earliest years, now sitting here on his desk all these grown-up decades later. Poetry is that terrifying basement where he shoveled coal to keep bodies warm, and that coal split concrete and dirt floor of that house built in pieces in the early 1900s and on into the 20s, and the pride of an anchor fence around abundant acres. And yet I was not there and wanting to be seen and unseen. Poetry is the unspeakable unknowing of four brothers, yes, Fosters, but brothers all the same, home from wars, the second one to end all, that left only slanted impressions on a baby's retina and eardrums, and the one that followed, the one I really remember, cutting across the 49th parallel of my awareness and taking Clarence from me. Clarence and his jazz music, those 78 RPMs and the funky feel of family and his magpie talk of things hip and the smell of blues and other worlds of other faces and the so near sentences of Charlie Parker and bebop Bud Powell laying the floor for my rhythm and blues, with Max Roach riding his cymbal into new time and Miles moving in a silent way. Poetry is the unspeakable unknowing of Kenneth in his Army Browns home from the war. Kenneth and the boy, all Vaselined and spit polished, traveling on the lumbering southbound train to the big city, and the building with a million faces, with fingers scraping the sky, and the Barnum barely lined to see a circus he could not get in to see, even with his big brother's uniform and medals and dignified army speak, and he only remembers the clenched jaw muscles tensed and the sinking in his belly as they left the line to eat hot dogs on 42nd Street, and his big brother's soft words touching a something deep inside him. Poetry is the unspeakable unknowing of birthdays, turning 9 and 10, standing at the crest of Payne Hill and dashing down into the valley, and in the park, alone, running and spinning and laughing and feeling foolish to find another world, with other black boys and girls and grown folk with faces looking back at him across the space of eyes that did not stare, a world bronzed and blue-black with no white faces, a valley world, bottom world, down there in the valley between Abbott Street and Route 9A, with Main Street lying just east of the Sawmill River, and his uncertainty treading new ground, he found his footfall steady, leaning in to listen, and to listen even deeper than the silence of the grave. Poetry is life's conversation with death, and intention intended to the elders, always on the wire, the elders who knew the dirt we did and called us to account for misbehaving. Ori and Lester Fleming and Miss Gibbs and Danny Lewis at the corner store with his sharp focus and cutting eyes, perched into the corner store across the field where the games were played and relationships cemented. Hattie and Daddy Jack Murray, the Mahoneys, Take No Shit Moses brothers, the Hendersons and McGee's, Reverend Yaba and the congregation at First Baptist Church where he was baptized twice and sung in the choir. There, down in the valley, where for a time he found a place to grow, a place to be. Okay. That was interesting. I remember writing that down. That was just
Relatively autobiography.
relatively, yeah, little autobiography about Elmsford, New York, the place where I grew up, and my neighbors, some of the folks that I grew up with. But thank you all for coming. Thank you for your attention to the artists. Thank you for your attention to this place. And thank you, Manny. And welcome back. And don't leave. I think we need to lock Manny up and keep him. So if we keep Manny, we're going to have to keep Jessica too. We really appreciate you being here. And Rob, you here, so you come back. All right? You come back. We really love you. And don't forget, Acoustic Spoken Word Radio. 11 p.m. this evening, 89.1 on your radio dial and NIPR-FM
On your
on
internet.
the internet. And on, is it next Saturday, Mary?
Yes.
Next Saturday, there will be a garage sale fish fry. Tell all your friends about it. We need to get folks in the door so that we can be here in December. And that ain't no joke. All right, thank you all for your attendance. Peace and blessings to you, and have a great evening.
Thank you for sharing.
Good to see you.
Thank you, man. Thank you all. I love your work. I absolutely love your work. Yes.
What time does it start on Saturday?
8 o'clock.
Okay.
8 to 5.
All right, I'm gonna
And I'm
come
going to be
early.
sending you information about what's happening with the building and things. It seems like it's good stuff. We've got folks on board who are trying to help us get to purchase the building. And I think if we can get the building,
Yeah. That would free up a lot.
yes, it
So
will.
the landlord is.
Well, he's giving us the ridiculous price of $150,000, and we know that ain't even reasonable. That ain't even reasonable.